Recently, I've been challenging myself to step out of my comfort zone, and that involves me painting traditionally. I try to focus a lot more on digital art because it's so flexible and it's what I want my career to mostly be focused on. But recently, I've been having to step out of that digital comfort zone. Ever since I started working on a few murals here and there and actually painting, I've actually found it really fun. Just the feeling of having to get your hands dirty and being able to hold the paint and be able to actually move around while painting has been actually very liberating. So for almost a year now, I have had this huge 60 by 60 centimeter canvas sitting in my room, waiting for me to do something of it. And for the longest time, I was very intimidated by it. It's a big wooden canvas that has a lot of potential, and I wanted to do something amazing on it and something that I could be proud of, because this thing was probably going to be sitting in my room for a long time, and there was no way that I could just hide it somewhere. So I spent months and months staring at it and thinking, what the heck do I want on this thing? Until November of 2025 came around and I realized, you know what? I'm gonna go back to what I love the most, and that is arcane. If you are new to this channel, you probably don't know, but I am obsessed with arcane. I absolutely adore the series, the style, and everything that has to do with it. And since it was November, I thought perfect timing, it's going to be the anniversary of arcane, and what better time than to make a piece for it. Little did I know I was not going to be done by the end of November with this piece, but that is a story for later in this video. With a very vague theme in mind, I decided this series has a lot going on. What am I going to focus on? And if you know anything about the arcane fandom, you know that ships are a huge thing. And one of my favorite ships from the show is Time Bomb, Jinx, and Echo. So I thought, you know what? Let's just focus on those two. My first initial thought was to do Jinx and Vi, but I wanted some romantic love in there, so I went with Jinx and Echo. So I went on the hunt to look for references, and I remembered the beautiful, stunning murals that come out in the series. Yeah, these murals, those are absolutely stunning to me. Just the fact that they look so loose, so free, and the fact that they aren't even actual real murals on walls is crazy. So that was my main inspiration going into this piece. I started sketching out some ideas, and this is what my initial sketch looked like. It was very rough. I always say that as long as I can figure out what is going on in this sketch, that is good enough. So with a very rough sketch in mind, I took it into Clip Studio and I started refining it and cleaning it up. And I wanted to change the composition a little bit just to guide the viewer's eyes in a more natural way and make it less confusing to see. And obviously, I made the characters actually look like themselves and not just a bunch of blobs and scribbles like they did before. And here is what the final sketch looks like. I went ahead and printed it out to the size of my canvas and started prepping it when a very uninvited guest came to help me and proceeded to walk all over my canvas. Yeah, I was not too happy about that, but that was not the only time she did that. For some reason, she could not find anywhere else to walk that wasn't right on top of the canvas, and right when I thought she had stopped, she proved me wrong and climbed on it yet again. At this point, I was so confused and I had no other choice but to physically get her off and try to convince her to stop. And I kid you not, this went on for a good 10 minutes. And finally, after she lied down, I started transferring the sketch by using a sheet of transfer paper under the sketch and tracing over the lines little by little. And the sketching portion was finally finished. The next morning, I started working on the underpainting by diluting some paint with water and doing my best to lather on an even coat of paint with the biggest brush I owned, which was tiny compared to the canvas, but I think I did a pretty okay job at it. I then rubbed off some paint from the parts that I wanted the light to be hitting, and once the paint dried, I covered the silhouette of the characters with some masking tape so I could start painting the background. So this is a reference that I made, and basically I was trying to create that smooth transition between the colors in the background, and I had a rough idea that I wanted some paint textures in the background, which obviously was going to look a lot more different from the sketch that I roughly made. So I started working on that. I started just by putting a bunch of random paint strokes wherever I felt they looked good and blending them out with my hands. I used several tones of blues and teals and some pinks here and there, and honestly, I just kept splattering paint wherever I felt I liked it. And with that, the background was done. I just spent the whole entire morning mixing up some tones for Echo's skin color. I pretty much mixed all of the tones here. I decided to go ahead and do the swatches on the top just so I can easily tell, but these little containers are so cute. I think right now what I'm going to be doing is just working on all of the Echoes that are here, working on all of his skin tone, and then mixing more paint for the hair. I don't have that many of these, and I really want to save myself the trouble of having to mix the paint every single day to match the tone. Yeah, these little guys are lifesavers. So today I wanted to start painting this Echo, the biggest Echo, first. I think I may only be able to do the eyes if I start painting right now, because once this sun goes down, I'm not gonna see anything, and I'd rather be able to see. Yeah, so this video was supposed to be a different kind of video, but I ended up changing my mind halfway through, so... Hey, oh my goodness. Okay guys, so it's been a month since I've actually recorded anything about this painting, and let's just say a lot has changed. So yesterday I recorded a little bit of me painting, and I basically was just working on finishing up the echoes in this painting. That sounds really weird to say, the echoes. Anyways, I finished working on the final portion of the echoes, which was Echo's little vest and a few details here and there, and I struggled quite a bit with the right colors and just trying to make it stand out from the background, but I think I ended up making it work. So I finally finished them up, and I can finally start working on the Jinx and powder portion of this painting. I also spent some time mixing up the color palette. Here, you can see. Hopefully today I can work on Jinx and finally get her started, because I have been working on Echo for a month now, so I'm kind of tired of that. So I'm ready to switch things up a little bit. That is what we're working on today. Alright, so as I said before, we are finally starting on Jinx. And honestly, I was a little bit nervous at first, but I thought, I mean, I painted Jinx plenty of times before. This should not be too hard. But oh boy, was I wrong. As you can see, I have already covered up what I just painted, which should have been my first red flag. I don't know if it was because I spent an entire month working on purely Echo, but I could not get her face right. I don't know if it was because of the pose or because I did not have any reference for that pose, but I just could not get it right. But I decided to distract myself by painting the arm and the hair to try to move on from that face. But little did I know that was not the end of it. It has been around like a week and a half since I have last seen you guys, and a lot has happened within that week. Let me break it down for you. Imagine I'm painting Jinx's face finally, and I look at it and I'm just like, ooh, what is that? I absolutely hate it. And then I decide to repaint it, and then I hate it once again. And this process goes on and on 5 different times. I repainted Jinx's face 5 separate times because I just was not happy with the way it was looking, and I had to look at like 5 different references to get the angle, to get everything right. I was doing that for a whole week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, honestly, and I finally got to a point where I was just satisfied with it. And today finally was the day I got to move on from her face and her arm, and I struggled a little bit with the hair. I am still not done with it, but that will be a problem for me tomorrow. But I worked on her hair. I was trying my hardest to get the tones right on her hair, and it was a little bit difficult, and there was a little bit of a problem with the paints too. So some of the colors of the paint that I have, which is just like cheap acrylic paint, some of them aren't matte, some of them have a gloss or satin finish to them, and I didn't realize until I had painted the like base colors that the whole entire hair was just glossy, and it just did not look good compared to everything else in this painting because all of Echo and all of the background is matte, so it just didn't fit with the whole vibe of the painting. If you looked at it at a certain angle, it just would look glossy, so I decided to look over my paints again and work with only the ones that said matte. I had a limited palette of only 3 colors that were in matte, including white, like a aqua blue green color, and a blue that I had bought recently. I tried my best to make a good palette from that, and I'm still not sure if I'm 100% satisfied with the hair yet, so I'm gonna leave it for today, and tomorrow I will check back on it. I feel like I'm never going to finish this piece. I've been working on it for so long. I just want to be done already. I thought this was going to take me maximum like a month. I am tired of it, and I kind of just want to get it done. I think we're halfway there. I'll check back on you guys tomorrow. Before we keep going with today's video, I want to announce that this video is sponsored by me. Recently, I opened my very own online shop where I am selling stickers, prints, bookmarks, and tote bags. If you would like to support me and this channel, head to www.etsy.com/shop/sdarts or click the link in the description down below. Again, if you would like to support me, this channel, and my art, head to www.etsy.com/shop/sdarts or click the link in the description down below. Now, without further ado, let's head back to the painting. Alright, after that little depressing episode I had over the first Jinx, I finally was able to move on to Little Baby Powder. I was so excited to start painting Little Powder. I don't know if it's just because of the pose and the side profile that is really in my comfort zone, but for some reason after I painted her, she just did not look young. She looked like a grown adult, honestly. So I did end up fixing up her proportions later on, but I think she was the easiest one to paint out of all of the other Jinx and powders. So honestly, just had a pretty fun time painting her, and that's it. Moving on to the alternate universe powder. So as you can tell, I did not have an easel throughout this whole entire video. I've just been moving my canvas from side to side, from one place to the other. So at this point, I was literally painting on the floor, put a blanket on there, and just painted there, which wasn't the best, but hey, I work with what I got. So honestly, I struggled a little bit with her skin tone just because I wanted her to be a little bit more tan, just have a little bit more live in color with not only her skin but honestly her hair too, which was a little bit of a struggle, but that was a little detail I felt the need to put in because I felt that was a very important part of the series. To finish off the day, I pushed a few elements more into the background and tried to make Echo look a little bit less like Megamind. This week, my plan is to finish this painting. Basically, what we have left is all of these pink spots over here, which are things that are going to be painted in. And we have a few little details that have been erased, but that were put in the background, like Jinx logo up here and just some little details. And I do want to try to maybe push the values a little bit more. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but for example, put this up just a little bit so you guys can see. This area down here has some light. It's probably the brightest part of the whole entire painting. I want to make that light reflect on their faces as well, if that makes any sense. I want to do that, and I want to try to push a few little more values, maybe push a little bit of this hair back into the background a little bit more. I'm not sure. I'm going to experiment with that, but I kind of want to leave that off to the end. For today, I want to finish at least this area up here. So we are finally in the last stretch of this painting. Yay! Okay, so with these last elements, I don't really have much to comment on them. They were pretty easy, very simple, especially compared to all of the other portraits, and especially with how much I struggled with a few of them. So honestly, it was very nice, very therapeutic, especially working on the necklace. I had such a nice time doing that, but it definitely gave me a few little hand cramps and some pain because I could not afford to make any mistakes whatsoever because I did not have the paint that I originally mixed up for the base color of the necklace. But I think I made it work and finished that up, and honestly, everything was super therapeutic. Even the little graffiti parts and the little symbols that I made were very therapeutic. And I did not record me painting the little plants in the bottom because even though everything was therapeutic, those definitely weren't because I needed to trust the process. They looked a little bit rough at first, but I made them work at the end. Now, this is where everything started to go wrong. I wanted to do a light effect with some chalk and some pastels. Did I test this out before? Did I try it out? No, absolutely not. Who do you think I am? I wanted some light to be shining on the alternate universe, Echo and Powder. And honestly, it could have turned out a lot worse, but I just wanted to finish this and I called it a night. And the next day, I finally went and sealed it with some acrylic sealer, and finally, I was done. With that, here is the final reveal. Alright, so I'm finally done with this piece. After working on it for 2 months, I started this piece back in mid-November. It is now mid-January, almost end of January, and why did it take me 2 months? I have no clue. I do know, actually. Let me recap a little bit of why this took me so long. First of all, I got sick for an entire week, almost an entire week. Well, no, actually it was an entire week. And I was literally rotting in my bed, so I didn't work on it for that whole entire week. And then I painted Jinx's face 5 times. I repainted and painted and repainted, and I just wasn't happy with it until I was. So, and I think this Echo also took me quite long to paint as well, just because he's just like the biggest person in this piece, and he was also the first one that I painted, so I was a little bit rusty on my painting skills. Ooh, I didn't record this, but I kind of messed up this part down here, and then I fixed it, and it doesn't look the same that it did before. But when I tried to make that effect happen with some dilated acrylic paint, it literally muddied up the whole thing. It made it look horrible. I hated how it looked, and I did that like 2 or 3 times, and every single time it just looked muddy and just horrible. I had to repaint them almost from like scratch at some point, so I didn't record that because I was literally gonna crash out. I'm really happy with how that same effect came out down here with the necklace. I don't know why in some places it looks nice and then in other places it just doesn't. I don't know. Other than that, I think I like the rest of the piece. I feel like for some reason this powder just looks dark, but I don't know if it's because I actually made her dark or it's just she just comes out dark in all of the pictures. I can't tell if she's actually just really just darker than everyone else or what is the matter with that. But I think other than that, I'm pretty happy. Everything else was easy. The plants down here were pretty easy. I just had to paint and render, I guess. When I first painted this part up here, I had to trust the process because I still didn't do any of the other background elements yet, and it just looked really out of place because everything else is rendered with like, you know, lights and shadows, so it just didn't look part of the piece. But I think I just had to trust the process, and I think it looks pretty okay. And I think I stuck pretty well to my original idea. So yeah, this whole painting took me 2 entire months, and I'm so glad to be done. I cannot tell you right now if I'm 100% happy with it or not. I think I've just been looking at it for way too long, and I'm just way too used to it. So for now, I'm just gonna say I'm satisfied with it. So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing with this huge painting. I just want you guys, I'm gonna hold it so you guys can see how big this is. This is literally the size of my torso and half of my head. I don't really know where or what I'm gonna do with it, so I'm gonna figure it out. Maybe I can sell it. I don't know. Does anybody want a huge 60 by 60 centimeter painting? It's wood. It's also wood, guys. Let me know what I should do with this painting. Let me know if I should sell it or what I should do with it. I really don't know what to do with it, but without further ado, I think that is pretty much everything for today's video. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know. And this is a little bit different than from what I usually have made before, but I'm going to be doing that a lot. I'm going to be trying to make content that I think fits me a little bit more now. So if you enjoy this type of content, let me know because I might have something coming up. I'm not sure yet, but I might. So thank you for watching this video. If you stuck around to the end of this video, thank you. I'm sure it was a long one. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Girl, I'm low-key falling here. Do you see this? I don't think you see this. This is literally, I'm trying not to fall because I don't have space.